You would be correct if you assumed that the stories of the women of Shogun would take center stage in an episode titled Ladies of the Willow World. And they have truly experienced Tell Dude. Although the guys too go through a difficult time, at least they have free will. Not only has John Blackthorne, an Englishman who hardly knew Japan, been given the title of Hatamoto, but he has also been given command of Toranaga's cannon artillery unit, his own house and personal consort, a new position as Chief Admiral of the Kanto, and a fief near Kanagawa, with a 600 koku salary attached, not to mention a pheasant that the townspeople should have just let to rot and eat it. In this episode, Toranaga addresses his remaining men after a large earthquake claimed many of them. He also receives the Admiral title, command of that artillery unit and that lovely sweet land. Engine continues to receive preferential treatment since he has saved his lord's life on a few occasions. My suggestion, perhaps continue doing that. Blackthorne, I think things are going nicely for you. The women are not as fortunate. In the wake of the previous episode's dramatic developments, Shogun Episode 6 promises to delve deeper into the complex dynamics between its ensemble cast of characters. With a focus on the series' female protagonists, including Mariko, Kityu, and Lady Ochiba, the episode unraveled intricate political intrigues and personal vendettas that threatened to upend the fragile balance of power. As Lady Ochiba schemes to consolidate her influence and undermine Toranaga's authority, tensions escalate, setting the stage for a showdown of epic proportions. Against the backdrop of feudal Japan's tumultuous landscape, viewers can expect a gripping narrative that explores themes of ambition, betrayal, and redemption. The harsh light of day arrives in this week's episode, bringing with it some sobering insights regarding the possible fallout from the tragic dinner at Blackthorne's house. Buntaro feels so strongly about this that he asks Toranaga for a meeting in order to express his regret for his impolite actions. There's no denying that Toranaga is sensing the awkward sensations between Blackthorne and Mariko, as seen by their lack of eye contact and Buntaro's submission, but he doesn't have time to handle this relationship turmoil. He needs to plot a war. He gives Buntaro a simple advice on how to handle his marriage: just get a divorce. But Buntaro responds that it's not that easy, especially after so many years of marriage. Buntaro claims that although Mariko has always been icy toward him, he has witnessed a noticeable softening of her attitude around a particular Hatamoto, which appears to give Toranaga a fresh perspective on how to handle things. He gives Buntaro orders to step away from the marriage for 1 week, but he gives Mariko and Blackthorne very opposite directions. Since it is obvious that their differences cannot be resolved by distance, he assigns Mariko the duty of organizing a night at a brothel for the Anjin, to which she is also required to go, in case he talks while he pillows. This week's episode not only demonstrates Anna Soi's acting prowess, but it also reveals the full scope of Mariko's devotion to duty, even at the expense of her own pleasure. We are constantly shown scenes in the present as well as flashbacks to the past where Mariko was forced to submit to the demands of others. Examples include her marriage to Buntaro and her decision to back out of an especially graphic execution at her father's insistence. Though it may not rank very high on Mariko's list of humiliations, having to bargain over the conditions of Blackthorne's night with Kityu while sitting across from the Madam of Willow World, the nicest brothel in Azumite. Even still, when they find themselves alone together, neither she nor we are fully ready for what happens between the three of them. The evening starts off simply enough, with Kityu serving up a tasteful tea service, while Mariko persuades Blackthorne to compliment her pouring technique. However, there's a big shadow cast over the whole thing as Mariko realizes that she'll probably have to witness the man she loves having an intimate relationship with someone else. But as it happens, Kityu, who has always been more astute than people probably give her credit for, identifies the true cause of the strange tension between Blackthorne and Mariko right away. Even though Kityu has an obligation of her own tonight, one that has practically already been purchased and paid for, she is nevertheless willing to use her abilities to allow Mariko to serve as a mediator between the two of them. Shogun keeps using language and translation in an exciting way, but this time it does so in a hypnotic way that takes the scene into very personal area. Mariko is in a position to share Kikyu's quiet descriptions with Blackthorne, even if she had vowed that the only words she would say to him would come from others' lips as the courtesan sits out of view behind her. Is Kityu saying these things to help Mariko or Blackthorne? It may not matter much after all because Mariko doesn't follow them into the adjacent room when Kityu moves to take Blackthorne there, as if recognizing she can't follow them there. It's unknown whether Blackthorne and Kityu had a physical relationship or whether he only confided in the courtesan the following morning. But let's just say that there's someone who might be even more unhappy about the whole thing than Mariko. When we first encountered Kiku this season, she was brought into Yabushige's company, in what turned out to be a quite remarkable sequence that featured a private performance for the Lord's amusement. She was a subdued presence in the background throughout the next several weeks, providing background music for a crucial meeting while being in a position to listen in on a variety of delicate conversations. Although it has always been fascinating to observe, Kiku's closeness to authority has only been utilized to manipulate some men. However, since Yabushige left for Osaka earlier in the season, Yabushige's nephew Omi has taken notice of her. Omi appears to be largely acting as though the two of them are the newest and most attractive power couple in town. When Kiku learns that her services are booked for the evening, she mostly sees it as a chance to establish her reputation. With Toranaga's help, she might become one of the most sought-after courtesans in the area. But Omi is less than thrilled about the idea of Kiku sleeping with Blackthorn, especially in light of their actual shit-fighting when they first met. But Kiku herself could be more shocked by Blackthorn's patronage than anyone else, no matter what happens between them that evening. The Englishman appears slightly worn and weary around the eyes when Mariko picks him up the next morning. He isn't nearly as happy as he was the morning after spending time with Mariko, which makes me believe there was only a long late night without any kind of sexual intimacy. Nevertheless, Kiku kindly invites Blackthorn to return, something Mariko deliberately chooses not to share. Observing the conversation from a distance, Nagakato, the son of Toranaga, notes on Blackthorn's seeming good fortune, whereas his father just lavished the Anjin with gifts these days. With Nagakato's carelessness and Omi's enduring dislike for Blackthorn, these two have been behaving badly lately. It wouldn't be shocking if one or both of them took a swipe at him in the near future. They will have to wait in line, though, since someone else is attempting to implement an even more ambitious scheme that has been years in the making. Although there was a feeling that the late Teiko's consort, Achiba, would return, there was no way anybody could have foreseen that the Council of Regents would be shaken up in such a fatal way. Prior to delving into that, however, there is still much to explore regarding the implications of Achiba's arrival in Osaka for the show's intricate web of relationships, and the reasons it matters that she has sided not just with Toranaga but also, it seems, with Mariko. We already know more about Mariko's tragic family background from last week's show, which she shared with us. However, the shocking truth that she and Achiba were close friends whose fathers were on different sides is revealed here. Before the Teiko, the legendary warlord Kuroda, Mariko's father, Akichi Jinsai, was the vassal of Achiba's father. It's obvious what happened between the two men in the end, but this side of the breakup gives a different perspective on the whole thing. When Ochiko was still known as Ruri, Mariko and Achiba practically grew up together. Mariko was the type of girl who would sneak out of her bed at night and witness atrocities carried out at Lord Kuroda's command, but Achiba chose to look away from what we cannot control. However, their relationship appears to have completely changed when Kuroda was killed by Jinsai. This is especially true now as Achiba is still certain Toranaga was involved in the conspiracy against her father with Jinsai, and she even thinks Toranaga organized the coup. This week, Achiba has Lord Ishio and the rest of the Council of Regents firmly in her grasp. That fatal night also instilled in her the drive to exercise authority from whatever position she may occupy. Essentially, the plan to hold the other regents and their families captive in Osaka Castle is to coerce them into selecting a new regent, so that Toranaga's impeachment can move forward. However, it also appears to be the most expedient method of stoking the dissident sentiments that have been rife within this group for weeks. Ochiko receives warnings from Daeon, the late Teiko's wife, that she might be siding with the wrong person in Ishido, but she is either too focused on exacting revenge on Toranaga, but Lord Shugiyama proves to be the impasse as the council gets ready to elect a replacement member in Lord Ido, especially considering they're all under threat of being imprisoned without charge. He not only declines to cast a ballot, but he also makes an attempt, later in the night, to flee Osaka Castle with his family. This attempt fails quite bloodily, as their deaths, which were done at Ishido's specific request, are attributed to those bothersome bandits who frequently patrol the highways outside of the city. Now that its membership has shrunk even more, the council looks ready to implode, but this may have been Ochiba's intention, particularly if it meant reaffirming her son's authority. Here, in Ochiba's last episodic session with Ishido, Nikato is at her most fearsome as the consort describes the anguish she went through in trying to give birth to the Teiko's one and only male heir. She will undoubtedly be a strong adversary for the duration of the series, but it remains to be seen how much influence she will ultimately have over the council. As Mariko said to Toranaga in private this week, a woman is simply at war, even though a man may go to war for many reasons. Fortunately for Toranaga, his general Hiromatsu has escaped the city to alert him to the unrest among his adversaries. Hiromatsu had originally stayed behind in Osaka to protect Toranaga's wife and consort. To his advantage, Toranaga knows he will need to enlist his brother as yet another ally. But if the Teiko family's boy is still in danger, Crimson Sky will be.